Good day, everyone. So today, we will discuss to you the ninth and final module of this subject entitled Infographics for Social Campaigns. So I am Keefe Mentino and I am together with my co-reporter for today, Jeraldine, Nonato. So for the very first part of our discussion, this is all about the overview of infographics. So what is an infographic? According to Vengage.com, it is a collection of imagery, data visualizations like pie charts and bar graphs, and minimal text that gives an easy-to-understand overview of a topic. So it says that there are 7 types of infographics based on their uses. We have the naming timeline infographics, we have the data visualizations, we have the anatomy, we have the processes, the how-tos, the comparisons, the lists, and the maps. So usually when we make infographics, we can either use templates from several platforms such as Canva, while we can also create our own starting from blank. So an infographic is a perfect way to visually represent important data and information so that your audience has a greater chance of understanding and retaining it. Why? Because according to the module, there is nearly 2/3 of the population that are visual learners. So when you create infographics, these are good for visual learners because these are visually appealing to the eyes, because there are more of those striking details than the information. Kumbaga, you will be engaged to view the information as because you will see it as just a little. So you wouldn't perceive it as a very loaded information type of learning material. So it is important to put a heavy emphasis on showing and not telling. So ang ano nga ba yung possible na problem sa mga infographics na ito? Of course, infographics can be a big help, but there will really be problems being encountered along the road. So yung pinaka-problem dito is yung mga poorly designed na infographics. So imbes na makapag-understand yung tao, nagko-confuse yung tao. Iba yung information na nakukuha ng tao. Diba? The problem is that for every well-made infographic published, there are a handful of poorly produced infographic designs circling around the web. Not just poorly designed, some are also even fake, delivering fake information. So that's the problem about infographics. We have to make sure that the information is accurate, reliable, and easy to understand, because that is the goal of an infographic. Now, we have here an example, different examples of an infographic. We have here, when should you use infographics? As we see in this example, it's very simple. It does not obscure information. Diba? There's just 4 information there on when you should use infographics. It's not that confusing, right? And then, second one, we have here the 10 world records you can break working from home. So, dito, makikita natin, it's very simple. It's very eye-attractive that you will be engaged to reading the information. The same with this COVID-19 one. Diba? Pagtulog mo pa lang, pagkakita mo pa lang, maganda. So you will be attracted and you will stay focused on reading the information. Also, another example here is what is an infographic, diba? You can also use different elements which will be discussed later. So, after ng overview, punta na tayo sa guidelines and what are the best practices in creating not just an infographic but an effective infographic. As what we said, yung effective na infographic, hindi yung nag-o-obscure ng information, hindi yung nagpapalito ng tao. Ito yung talagang nagde-deliver ng information in the most effective, efficient way to the readers and to the audience. Now we have heard the first 3. So, ang first is, you need to plan. In everything that you do, you need to plan. Maski ano man sa buhay, kailangan talaga ng plano. And here, in the module, we said find a story. Because it's important to have a story. Because as we said kanina, we should show. It's a show. Infographic is a show. And in every show, it's better to have a story. In every set of data, there's a story. Before you begin designing your infographic, think of the story you are trying to tell. The angle you choose will help you determine which information to include, diba? Because if you are wanting to explain the reader's point of view, then you will also align what information you would tell to them. If you are trying to tell those wala medyo may nabalaan, so ang imo information medyo very basic. Pero pag ang imo naman niya audience is ang mga well-intelligent na, so you will now deal with a detailed and a more complex information. Kumbaga, di ba? So you align your information, the content of your infographic to your audience, to the angle you choose. Diba? So for example, we have here an example. Here, project timeline. So this infographic design tells you the story of completing a project from the start to finish. As you see here, step 1, we consult the client, up to the step 9, wherein you already review the finished project. So you chose your angle, you chose the story, which is to tell what happened in the project. So because of that story, you were able to create this timeline type of infographic. So because infographics allow for limited space for content, the purpose of your infographic should be focused. That's why the layout of your infographic should not only reflect the theme of your information, but also it enhance how you communicate with your audience. So that is our example of having a story on your infographic. Another example here, diba? So dito may story, paano mo daw mabibit yung jet lag, paano mo properly wash your hands. So there's a story. There's something that pagkakita pa lang ng title, may engage na yung tao. Because parang may idea sila kung ano. May story. So how to beat your jet lag. First, magpaplano ka daw for zone change. Then you fly at night. And then dito naman sa properly wash your hands. You wash with water and soap. Then you lather. And so on and so forth. So that's really how important a story, a plan is. So there should really be a plan before you create your infographic design. Ito na nga siya, no? So, yun na yung mga examples natin. Next, you need to create an infographic outline. Infographic outline, because before you dive into your design, you have to create it, and it should include your headers, your data, your design details that you don't want to forget. So, syempre, gawa muna tayo ng outline. Parang kumbaga kung nag-drawing tayo, gumagawa tayo ng sketch. Hindi basta-basta na minamadali ang isang infographic. Because if your goal for an infographic is just to finish it, then you might not be able to really create an effective one that really inform your readers, your audience. Diba? So, kailangan may outline talaga. Ano yung gusto mong headers? Ano yung data na included dun? Ano yung gusto mong theme? Diba? Ano yung story mo? Diba? You use that story, you use that plan to create the outline of your infographic. Ano ba? Andito ba yung header sa baba? Andito ba yung header sa taas? Andito ba sa magsing left or right? Ganon. You create the outline. So, how will you relay your information? And then, of course, after you create the outline, you also have to write a compelling title. No? So, bakit? Because titles, or a good compelling title, is very catchy to your audience. It is descriptive. So, readers would then get a sense of what the information will be. Because pag walang title dyan, then walang idea yung readers kung about ano yung information. And would you personally read an infographic without a title? Diba? Hindi. So you always look for the title, and that title should be compelling, should be descriptive enough, but short enough to engage the persons, to engage the audience. That's why it's very important to write a compelling title. So here, we can see here the examples ng compelling title. We have here, social media, diba? Makikita mo, agad-agad, na about ano ba yung information na to? Ano yung title ng infographic na ito? What is the information that is being conveyed in this infographic? Dito, social media. Dito, content marketing. Diba? Alam mo na agad, ikaw na reader, may idea ka na kung ano yung makikita mo, ano yung mababasa mo. Dito rin ito, studying business pitch deck. Kumbaga, it gives the reader the idea of what are they reading or what are they supposed to know in this infographic. So, yun na yung first 3 steps. You plan, you create an outline, and then you write a compelling title. Now we dig in deeper to more. What is the 4th step? So the 4th step is you use a grid design for a wireframe for your infographic design. So grids and wireframes are the structural base of any design. Designing on a grid allows you to easily organize elements and information. The grid design also play an essential role in keeping objects and elements aligned. For example, when aligning items, you can reference the same vertical grid line and then space each list them accordingly. So we have here the example nga na nakikita natin sa ating PowerPoint, no? Here, we have here the grid line. Nakikita natin sa likod ng color combination, may grid line siya na vertical at saka horizontal. So it shows you how color palettes are aligned on a graphic design grid. So here, this is actually a Venn gauge editor. So ang Venn gauge editor also has the option of using smart guides. So muna nga, smart guides which help align items for you automatically without using a grid design tool. So mas maganda talaga kung minsan na may grid. Kasi for example, me personally, when I create designs, medyo hindi ko siya manotice kung align ba siya, kung naka-center ba siya. So important yung grid lines para makita natin, ay hindi, okay na siya. Hindi ko na siya kailangan i-move. Kailangan ko siyang i-move. Kasi hindi siya pantay. So that's how important grid designs and wireframes are. So next, so as we can see nga kanina, ito nga yung sinasabing example. 5th is you use the right infographic layout for your data. If you have the outline, if you have the title, if you have the grid design, you have to also have the correct layout for your data. Ano nga ba yung mga layout na sinasabi? As you can see here in the PowerPoint, pwede yung mga 1 column, pwede yung mga 2 column, 3 column, section by section na layout. So, pero usually, when I create infographics, I use 1 column. Especially, kasi pag masyadong maraming column, parang masyadong information loaded naman siya, di ba? So, pag minimal lang naman talaga yung infographic mo, usually, 1 column, or as we see here, you create a list infographic by splitting the layout into 2 columns. Next. So, as we can see here, we have here the 1. This is the 1 column here, the yellow one here. And then here at the upper right, this is the 2 columns. And then we have here the 3 sections sa ilalim. So, sa first section sa ibabaw, And then second section here sa lower left, third section sa lower right. So ito na nga siya, no? One column layout. One column lang siya, isang column. We have the two column layout. And then we have the three sections layout. 6. So sa 6, meron tayong data visualization best practices. And the 7th is you choose your best chart types. Diba? So sa data visualization, parang connected din siya sa chart types kasi. Because when you plan your infographic, meron talaga dapat na may data visualization na process na involved. So, and usually, the best output for data visualization is the chart types. Mga pie chart, mga bar graphs, mga column graphs, mga line chart. Because this help stimulate the audience to be more engaged in your infographic. Diba? Para mas gustuhin nila na mag-stay at mag-focus, magbasa ng kung ano yung kino-communicate ng infographic mo. Okay? So, here, we have here the column graph. So, column siya by column. So, ito yung mga example ng ating So, ito nga yung mga example ng ating mga chart types. So, yung column graph, ito yung sinasabing one of the easiest way to compare the data. Next, we also have here line chart. So, makikita natin usually mga growth ito, you keep track of a single item. For example, here, how the user base has shown growth, diba? So, as January to December, tumaas siya ng tumaas yung user base nila. And then, we also have the bar graphs. So, dito sa bar graphs, magandang bar chart type din siya. Actually, because it's very appealing to the eyes, yung mga column na yan, parang nagsosolve ka kasi. So, pares dito sa July, asan nga ba siya? So, nasa 1.8. So, yung mga ganyang processes kung minsan, parang magandang activity pa siya sa audience mo na hindi mo lang ini-spoon feed yung data sa kanila. Next, we have here the pie chart. So, mas 3D, mas visually appealing nga. So, actually, if you think of a more unusual chart that would convey the data effectively, you should not be afraid to be more creative. So, pag may more creative ka pa na mga bar chart types, pwede, as long as it's not that over. Basta, wag lang yung sobra-sobra because anything na sobra is hindi naman maganda. Okay, so for example you can use that kanina yung line chart natin to show the trends ng mga sales. Diba? Usually sa atin sa accounting, we track the sales. So we use lines. Diba? Mas mabuti yung line chart doon. Okay? So, after ng ating bar chart types, as we discussed, meron yung 4. Yun na yung ating guidelines and best practices. Okay? So, ayun na nga. Una, magplano tayo. I-plan natin yung design. Pangalawa, gumawa tayo ng outline. Pangatlo, gumawa tayo ng compelling na title. Pang-apat, kung maaari, we use a grid designer or wireframe para mapa-easy yung paggawa nyo ng infographic. Pang-5, you use the right infographic layout. 1 column ba siya? 2 column? 3 column? 3 sections? 2 sections? It depends on you, whichever is for you the most fit on your infographic design, plan, and outline. And then, you also, 6th and 7th, is the data visualization and the best chart type. So, it's better to incorporate these chart types for more visually appealing infographic design. So, after ng ating mga guidelines and best practices, punta na tayo sa kung paano natin i-incorporate yung mga infographic design elements sa ating infographic na talaga. Okay? So, first, how would we incorporate typography? So, in incorporating typography, we need to i-limit talaga natin yung amount of text. Because, pag masyado na siyang maraming text, hindi na siya nagiging infographic, parang nagiging essay. So, sino ba yung gustong bumasa ng essay? Diba? Ikaw nga parang ayaw nang bumasa ng sarili mong essay, tapos ipapabasa mo pa sa iba. Diba? So, it needs to be limited. The best infographics have a visual impact. They have the text that is only acting as a secondary explanation na siya dapat. Dapat yung pinakaunang nag-i-explain ay yung visual content. So, typography kasi, this is a very important element for the infographic design, and your one way to explain your ideas and information when images, graphics, and icons cannot, dyan mo na ilalagay yung text pag hindi na siya kayang i-explain ng mga visual content, diba? And also, when you incorporate the typography as we see here, more talaga siya sa visual content, and yung font maganda din. Fit din yung font, diba? You make sure that your font is legible, diba? You need to avoid those decorative and script types, diba? Because mahirap siyang mabasa, diba? Mahirap talaga siya mabasa. We have here the example. Imagine having an infographic like this. Ano to? Hindi mo na ito mabasa, oh. Hindi mo mabasa. Hindi mo alam saan ka magsisimula. Right? Hindi siya maganda. Then, next. Compare natin dito. Diba? Maganda yung paggagamit niya ng font. Visual content pa rin yung halos majority. And it's not that overpowering compared dun sa, diba? That's why how important typography is, that we also need to limit it, and we need to use it effectively, efficiently, using text. Okay? So if you have to use a small text or an elegant font, you use it sparingly. It always helps to increase the line height of the bodies of small text if it starts to become hard to read. No? So to keep your infographic designs cohesive, limit your use of fonts to a maximum of 3 types. Meron din ako nakikita kasi nito. Merong 1 type lang ng font. So the problem with 1 type of font, hindi mo alam saan yung header. Diba? Nag-create tayo ng outline eh. Diba? So, dapat may header tayo, may mga sub-content tayo, may mga important details. So, dapat more than 1. And according dito sa module, a maximum of 3 types. Diba? Kasi kung isa lang, hindi mo alam saan dito yung pinaka-importante kasi lahat pareho yung type ng font. Diba? Tapos, meron din ako nakikita, ang daming type ng font. And it's really not visually appealing. It will not engage your audience. Diba? So, usually, dalawang brand ng fonts can create a nice dynamic and hierarchy of information. Diba? Dalawa okay na. May pang header, pang important details ka, may pang sub-content. Maganda na yung dalawa. Hindi na siya dapat lumampas sa 3. Okay? So, as we can see here, we have here, I think dito meron siyang dalawa. Dalawa lang. Yung school backpack, yung mga headers niya, isang font, and then yung mga sub-content niya, another font. Diba? Mas maganda kasi dalawa lang. Madi-distinguish mo saan yung header, saan ka dapat una, and then ano yung explanation to. Diba? So, dapat sa school backpack, meron daw may shoulder straps, meron daw may sternum strap, merong water bottle pocket, and may reflective tape. Diba? You can easily summarize what you have read. So, because nga, at the end of the day, an information's goal is to communicate information to the audience. And lastly, a number of statistic in one font type, next subtext in another creates a hierarchy of information. So as we can see here, no, so mas maganda pag yung ating mga statistics, nakamagandang font din siya. 'Di ba? Parang naka-hierarchy in information din siya. And meron siyang mga subtext. For example, yung pinaka-important, like dito, yung 50 grams, 'di ba? Hinighlight mo yung 50 grams. Pero dapat, may nakalagay din dyan, ano yung 50 grams na yan? 'Di ba? Meron tayo ditong whey protein. But we limited it. We small, yung font size niya mas maliit doon sa 50 grams para nga maging visually appealing siya. Diba la? Parang marketing din. So, diba, i-advertise mo muna yung numbers and then ilalagay mo kung ano yung number niyan about. Diba? Because if lagay mo lang dyan 50 grams, anong 50 grams? Diba? Pwedeng 50 grams ng water, pwedeng 50 grams ng oil, pwedeng 50 grams ng tea, o ano ba dyan, diba? Dapat cohesive yung information pero may hierarchy naman ng information. So, that's it on how you incorporate typography in your design, in your infographic design. So, the next part of our module is to be reported by my partner in this report, Ms. Jeraldine Nonato, of incorporating the other design elements about photography, contrast, balance, color, consistency, and space.
Good day everyone, so I am your second reporter, Jeraldine Nonato, and we're gonna tackle about the other topic of our report, which is the photography in infographic design. So, photography has become a part of how we communicate nowadays, especially with social media platforms like Instagram, right? And together with infographic design, which collects data visualizations like pie charts, bar graphs, and minimal text that Keefe has been discussed, it also collects images or photographs that gives an easy way to understand the overview of the topic in the infographic designs. And also, it uses striking, engaging visuals to communicate information quickly and clearly. So, to be in short, it is a visual communication, graphically represents the information to efficiently and effectively convey an idea. So these are the requirements and examples, content of an infographic that could be in graphics, symbols, illustrations, and elements which focus on the information or what the infographic design is all about or what it wants to the readers or viewers to understand. Also, together with the requirements of lighting effects, backdrops, amount of dark areas, and the consistent styles, the purpose of the infographics using this could be very effectively and efficiently and easier to convey the idea to the viewers or the audience. So, photography in infographic design, of course, composed of images, which we recognize as it is more universally understood than text, making it overcomes language barriers, cultural barriers, and literacy barriers, making it the key component in infographic, and thus choosing images for infographics is one of the most critical steps in catching the eyes of the audience or the viewers, right? So doing this also helps you, although it helps you accurately share the message of your piece and create a connection with the text and can clarify the information presented in a layout by adding meaning and evoking associations. There are steps or elements in images that we must give importance and crucial points. So aside from images, there are also symbols, because an image on its own, however, is not enough to be meaningful, right? So because its meaning changes depending on its context and position. So in other words, the way it's used, muna siya galain. And we are very visual beings now pa we're living our lives very efficiently and inconvenience with modern technology. So images not only attract our attention but or also spark emotions that draws us in, right? So another elements of photography in infographic is also the symbols. So it makes a summary and it communicate complex ideas quickly and easily. So kumbaga, it is the overall content that ensure effectively communications, the information, what it's meant to share, right? And also, it can give structure sa infographic and can be used to highlight key pieces of information. Well, symbols are perfect ways to represent text visually because they are minimalistic while still providing the perfect visual balance together with the images. So, kumbaga, partner gid sila nga duwa ni image para mag-option sa content, like kung ano ang gina-mean o gina-visualize o gina-depict sa image and what does the symbol recognize meant to share. Well, symbols are essential part of many user interfaces. Bisan sa aton nga Facebook, sa business logo, or sa any social media platforms, or any contents in the internet, right? Because it visually expressly shows objects, actions, and ideas. Kumbaga, ang images, actions, and ideas pinagsama-sama is, kumbaga, sa symbol na siya nga form. It has everything in there. So, and when done correctly, symbols communicate the core idea and intent of a product or action, just like what I've said. And it is a great way to divide a wall of text versus the images and the text of the information or the content, making it more readable. Kumbaga, isa lang katudog sa viewers or sa audience sa muna symbol, agad-agad gets na nila kung ano ina. Like, example, shopping cart. Well, shopping cart means online shopping or shopping or online selling, right? So, strategically, taking large amounts of text and converting them into easy-to-tackle sections are the most function or the most role of symbols in infographic design. Aside from what I've said earlier, na importance and uses ng images and symbols, some of the uses and importance of them are also stated here, presenting to you. First, it can educate viewers, enact positive changes in a community, promote a brand, and sell an idea, just like what I've been example earlier, ang shopping cart. And it strengthens the ability to consider composition or the formal relation of elements in an image, like the text and image. Baga pag pinagsama sila, it forms a symbol and it becomes more readable or more understandable than sa mga viewers. And the third one, it minimizes the work the viewer needs to do or to understand an idea. And photography also enables the audience to better understand the impact of light and color and importance sang texture. And also, the photographs are very effective images that can convey stories very quickly. This is an example of an infographic. As you can see, images and text are balanced for the readers or viewers to conceptualize what does the infographic images and text delivers to them. Also, ang color scheme is parehas. The uses of font styles, font sizes are also the same. And also, ang contrast ng images balance man, it is to make the audience or viewers easily understand what does the infographic design is all about or the idea that the content is purposely conveyed for. Okay, so the next one is the contrast in infographic design of images and typography. So we know that contrast is a differentiation or the comparison of two or more different graphics or visuals, just like images and typography. Well, it creates visual impact by placing two strikingly different elements beside each other. So representing to you is an example of a contrast in typography, Well, it has different font styles, different font size also. And also it uses color backgrounds to emphasize the text. Okay, so the contrast in photography is the visual ratio of different tones in an image. This difference creates the textures, highlights, shadows, colors, and clarity in a photograph. Well, the purpose of contrast is to emphasize or exaggerate intended meaning, right? And this is done to make the meaning clearer or more effective. So, good color contrast means all users can see your content no matter the device they're using or the lighting of their surrounding. And thus the color contrast impacts the readability of your content. So contrast in photography is very crucial or very important to effectively communicate what does the image really represent or depicts or the content in it. This is an example of contrast in image. We can see the comparison of the range of brightness in the lady's face, the dark and brightness side, from lightest to darkest. So the right face shows high contrast image. As you can see, it has very bright highlights and very dark shadows. And on the other side, the left side represents low contrast. It has very low bright highlights and very low dark shadows. Well, aside from the very focus or importance of contrast in an image, the use of this provides also the audience or viewers a simple differentiation of the two objects, as they can see or as they can directly see the difference from the brightness, from the range of brightness, from the lightest to the darkest. Okay, so aside from contrasting images, Differentiating the typography in the infographic also matters. Well, this is to emphasize the information naman and give focus on those significant one. Here is one example of the contrast between the font sizes and the color backgrounds. As you can see here, there are large font sizes and small font sizes, and also the different background colors to emphasize the information or content in it. Well, the title is in large font size, the 3 ways to shift your mindset for business success, and then its subtitle also has a different color. This is what we call the contrast in typography, not just on font size and small font, but everything that makes the information or makes the content more readable and understandable in contrast to other content or information beside in it. Just like this example, it appears that the 2 elements or the 3 elements next to each other that are similar in every respect, except the size is one way to bring in size contrast. The first, second, and third, or the 3 ways in business, it can be big and small images or big and small typefaces. For example, leaving that every details of the information is provided with emphasis in accordance on what the included content define and how it is different to others. In this example, it is a matter of color contrast in the text of the text. And it is important because text and background colors can determine how people interact with the content that is written in those colors. So, when using this, low contrast colors are difficult to read, right? When the text contrast poorly with background colors. Like if dark ang imo color, imo background color, and then dark man imo font size color, or font na color. And while high contrast colors are easier to read when paired together, like if dark ang imo background na color, it must be that the font color is in bright color or in white color. So, the contrast in the typography pertains to the thick and thin of the letter, just like the bold or non-bold option. In general, the font weight of letters, and for more or better contrast, we can use italics, small caps, or all in a capital letter. Of course, these font styles have specific role in the infographic or other documents. Italics, which are used for distinguishing the words from other parts of the text and draw attention. It makes less dominant than all uppercase text, and as a method of emphasis or distinctiveness for text alongside. And if bold, it strongly stands out from the regular text, and it is used often to highlight keywords in the important key sentence or important phrases to the text context or to the informations. And for the small caps, it is purposely for the body of the information, ang content na gibala sa documents, or in infographic, it is the main information details. Typefaces create different aesthetics, and contrasting them can be a good way to create visual flow. It draws the eye, captures attention, creates focal points, and helps establish visual hierarchy. Using fonts that are easy to read are key to the presentation, right? So the fonts add value to the text, and it helps readers or viewers to perceive information from the text art of arranging letters and text in a way that makes the copy legible clear and visually appealing to the reader. So the first is to promote the legibility, and the second is to help communicate the messaging, the tone, and sentiment of a design piece. And another function of typography revolves around aesthetics. We're drawn to visually attractive designs that are clean and easy on the eyes, right? So, also, like, hindi lang sa itong mga outfits, it must also for our creation in infographics, it is important that our different typefaces of font styles must have a good way of visual flow, which could be in a form of aesthetics. So here is an example. As you can see, the title or what is the information all about is being emphasized with big capital font weights and styles. This is the What About Dance Hall, that is the title or the focus of the information. And the other content is in small size fonts, as it is the body of information or the content of what the title is all about, which the readers or viewers need to know. Okay, so now let's go deep more about the contrasting visuals or the contrast of an image or in a photograph. Aside from my introduction in the previous slides about the contrast, let's go now more deeper about the visuals contrast. So we know that contrast is the contradiction in luminance or color that makes an object, and it is determined by the difference in the color and brightness of the object and other objects within the same field or view. And it what creates the textures, highlights, shadows, colors, and clarity in a photograph, right? And like from my example of a lady's face, which has on the right side of her face high contrast siya, while the other is low contrast. So it depicts the range of brightness from lightest to darkest. And sometimes an image highlights may be almost pure white, or the shadows may be almost pure black, which means the high contrast, right? So from this, we can conclude that the contrast is a key element to convey certain moods through images. Okay, so looking at the example, the second side of the image is in high contrast because the photos pop out and show textures in the subject and give a feeling of edginess, high energy, and strength. Well, it is accurate that it is used a lot in street photography and nature photography, while the first side of the image is in low contrast. It tends to have a dreamy feeling, right? As you can see. And while the high contrast images focus on the viewer's attention to well-defined areas of light and shadow. As you can see, ang first side is medyo malabo or low iya pagka-darkness. While the other is in high contrast, focus gid siya. It is clearly. So that's an example of contrast in an image, the low contrast and the high contrast. This one is the example for the typography contrast, which results or the scores are being compared using colors. As well, using the low contrast of the background image, the content is emphasized. As you can see, ang content or ang information, which is all about the city startup scores by industry, is being emphasized, or it is clearly in the image, using also the different legend of colors. It shows the scores of different countries' industry. This information or content is being emphasized because or through the background image which is in a low contrast. Ang bridge nga background image sa content is being in a low contrast para ma-pop out ang information. While words can and should be used, the visual aspect is just as important as the words. So this is a reminder to create an infographic. Just like of everything, words and image must just be balanced, whether or whatever forms of elements an image or the words or the content has. It must be balanced as it is important in overall details or presentation of the infographic or any other documents or visuals. Now let's go to another element of photography in infographic, which is the creation of symmetrical and asymmetrical balance. So first, what is symmetrical? So it is made up of exactly similar parts facing each other or around an axis. And in balance, it occurs when two identical sides of a design with a central point of axis. While on the other hand, the asymmetrical is having parts that fail to correspond to one another in shape, size, style, or arrangement. Well, in balance, the two sides, even that has a different or varieties in shape or size or styles, it seems or it depicts a balanced visuals. But both keeps the entire composition cohesive, especially in a long form infographic. So, presenting to you are the features of a symmetrical balance design. The elements are in equally weighted manner, mirror image on both sides of a center line, while the asymmetrical is more natural and less uniform. It is more complex between objects and has an equal visual weights. Presenting to you the examples of symmetric and asymmetrical balance. So the first picture possesses the symmetric balance and the other is the asymmetric. As you can see, in symmetric, there is equal and even weight of designs, colors, and style, while the other, or the asymmetrical balance, has uneven, different design and different variation of colors and styles. But it seems or it depicts a visual balance and still caught the attention of the viewers. So, the symmetrical balance in infographic design, applying on typography design, the comparison of two graphics or different information, the iPhone 6s versus the Galaxy S7 are equal on side, and the differentiation or the comparison accords to same topic, thus making equal and even design. It's about the price, the resolution, the screen size, storage, the SIM, battery, and weight. Different gadgets, but the comparison or the graphics depicts a equal and even design. And the otherwise is the asymmetrical balance, like what I'm presenting to you. The graphic information is in different positions sa magkabilaan nga sides, but although it still depicts or it still shows a visual balance. Now let's discuss on how we can use the colors we choose effectively. So the colors that we want must allow to highlight different data sets and their relationship with each other. also decide on the tone of the infographic, and it must also be used as a sectional tool. And the 60% of your graphic should use one color. This is based in typically the one that's more neutral. So as we know, colors can make us feel a certain way when we see it, depending on whether we like that particular color or not, right? So we can also associate memories and thoughts with certain colors. It is a powerful communication tool and can be used to signal action, influence mood, and even influence physiological reactions. So using colors effectively in infographic can bring your content to life and set the mood for any infographic you create. So the choice of the use also captures audience attention for the first few seconds, and the colors that allows the differentiation or the comparison of the data sets is very significant or important in the infographic design. Like, diba, kung makakita kita color, example nga, color is black, mga bata, is that person is mourning or suffer sorrows. And if white naman, siguro pure or sincerity, diba? Those are the moods or the values or virtues nga ato nakikita in different colors. Like, diba may mga definition patagan isang colors, like if yellow, joy, red, love, green, the nature, naamo sinad. That's why the colors are important also in infographic design, because it can easily convey the idea of what the infographic design is all about to the viewers or the audience. And also, it cuts the attention. It cuts their attention. Diba? If, example, the infographic design is possessed of color red, mabal sila nga, oh, it must be, this infographic design must be or could be in topic of love or romance. So, kumbaga, maengganyo sila in that way. Now, let's go on how we create eye-popping infographics. First, we must use brighter hues, add blocks of color to section infographic, set the right tone with a custom infographic color scheme, add blocks of color to section the infographic, giving the eye some breathing room as viewers scroll down. So these are the features of an eye-popping infographics. It must be eye-catching, but still summarize information succinctly. They are very visual, whether you're viewing on a page or a printed version hung on a wall like that. And they are easy to share. Like, most nga mga eye-popping infographics have a descriptive images, great images that helps the audience or viewers to understand the content in a meaningful and straightforward way. Also, the dramatic images, which demands attention and excellent exposure for the infographic contents. And other images that are being used in eye-popping infographics are detailed images, positive images, and more. Next is the color scheme on infographic subject. The color that we use must communicate the infographic purpose clearly, and it must visual present the focus on the main ideas or what does the infographic tells about, and it must represent the nature of the topic being still creative. A color scheme is very important to convey a wide array of messages while keeping the reader confined inside the infographic. So, with huge and complex infographics, readers will become quickly confused and their perceptions will be scattered all over the place if they don't have colors tying down their thoughts visually. So these color schemes is purposely para ma-maintain or ma-sustain sang content ang kumbaga ang grasp sang attention sang viewers or sang readers hasta nga matapos ang infographic designs. And because data color is important for any visual element, so choosing the right palette of infographic design is integral because it helps set the tone and help express a certain message. So even though that the right colors can be difficult to choose, as you want them to complement but not overwhelm your audience. Diba? Kinahanglan nga aesthetics while nga ang tanan nga elements or colors nga dapat or appropriate sa muna nga design is it is somehow related on the color scheme, diba? So that's the color scheme in infographics subject. Okay, so this is another crucial point on the infographic design, the consistency. So the design elements need to be consistent. If you are using icons that are filled in rather than line art icons, then keep using the same style throughout the entire infographic. So consistency in design is about making elements uniformly, having them look and behave the same way. The colors, ang contrast, ang font size, ang different positions, ang context, ang balances, ang image, all of that must be in a consistent form. Because it helps a design work communicates clearly and look professional, and helps to ensure the design work is communicating the intended message. Similar elements that are perceived the same way make up the visual consistency. It increases learnability of the product. The font sizes, buttons, labeling, and similar need to be consistent across the product to keep visual consistency. So from the first topic that I have discussed, from the contrast, the typography sizes, symmetrical and asymmetrical balance, on how to use the colors effectively, color schemes, elements, font styles, and sizes, and images, also the previously reported Keefe that has been discussed, the graphics or the charts, it must be consistent because this will prevent the infographic from looking cluttered and will actually make it easier to read. It should tell a meaningful story in an instant and should be easy to skim read. Well, you know that a clean, uncluttered design allows the key elements to stand out and communicates the main point clearly. Gubaga para hindi malito ang mga viewers, kaya basi bala, lain naman ni nga infographic design akong ginabasa or ginalantaw. But wala sa kabalo nga, it's the same. So, makalalasa, kumbaga, if hindi consistent ang aton nga infographic design. And also, basi ka maklutter man or ma-confuse ang readers or ang viewers sa intended nga message sang infographic. Or baka gani sa throughout the designs, ang topic or ang subject sa infographic is ma-shift to another topic, diba? So a clean design or an infographic which is consistent is a more preferred than those infographic design nga madamo sa styles or another form nga elements nga wala sa mga previous nga graphics, diba? Because it communicates, because the consistency communicates the main point clearly, which the design must possess. So, the last but not the least important in a photography in infographic design is to leave a plenty of negative space. Because we know negative space is a kind of breathing room for all the objects on the page or screen. Not only does it define the limits of objects, but it also creates the necessary bonds between them according to the principles and builds up effective visual performance. So, negative space is the blank space surrounding objects in a design. Negative space has a big impact on the infographic design, and if your infographic design is too crowded, it can overwhelm readers and make it difficult to read the information. So it must that the balance in the design of the infographic must have a positive space so that a visual piece does not overwhelm viewers. And if even that a infographic design has a busy actions or elements or kumbaga siksik siya sa icons na because it is appropriate or dapat lang nga ibutang, mas still dapat may quiet area or the negative space man siya pon sa design because it can help to draw attention to the main focus of the work. And also, it is important because it can help the viewers or the audience to accurately understand and can help with creating an interesting composition. Well, the right amount of negative space in the infographic design will separate objects and cushion text to make it more readable and encourage the audience to look at certain elements of the design and helps to direct the visual flow. But also, too little white space makes a design feel cramped and cluttered. So, dapat balance lang ang elements, ang graphics, ang text nga igabutan sa infographic design. This is somehow relates to the consistency. So, if madami nga naobra nga infographic design, plenty sang quiet area or some negative space or some white areas, it must flow throughout the entire infographic design para nga hindi ma-cramped or ma-cluttered ang elements, not just that but also the information para ma-purposely or ma-easy nga ma-convey ang idea sa viewers or audience. So, leaving negative space can be as simple as making sure there is enough space between lines of text. Kumbaga, simple lang man nga mag-obra sa negative space. It must be nga, hindi lang naton pag-idikit or masyado nga i-compress ang aton mga details or ang information sa infographic design. It because we must kumbaga ma-separate kita sang spaces, ang white spaces, because it improves the readability and reduce cognitive overload, and helps readers understand the content better by creating a sense of order and flow between the infographic elements. So that ends our discussion on Module 9 about infographic design. So thank you everyone for listening.